Hello, everybody, and welcome to our panel event, More Than AI, Thriving in the Next Era of Design. I'm Cam. I used to say I'm VP of Growth. I've been the CEO of Design Lab for about 2 months, but I've been with them for about 3 years. Actually, I just think I had my anniversary the other day. We're going to get started. We have an awesome set of panelists from our larger mentorship community. Really excited to have this conversation today. I think there's been so much talk about AI, and not to say AI isn't super important in the industry and in general, but I really am looking forward to have a conversation that goes beyond that and talks about the other things that are still really important in the space. We'll get started in about 1 minute. I always like to just, if you're so inclined, Rudy beat me to it. Say hi in the chat. Tell us where you're dialing in from. It makes us feel like we're not just talking into the void. Um, and we could get a sense for who's here. If you have questions, if you want to just like say random things, give thumbs up, all that stuff, all that is good in the chat. If you have questions as the panel goes, we're going to leave some time for that at the end. We might drop in some in between. Feel free to use the questions tab so we keep track of those. And we will get going super shortly. Nora from Boston, Alex from Chicago, Toronto, NYC, London, and Atlanta. Okay, we have a little bit of some international folks. Hi, everybody. So the run of show, Rudy, who's also on the Design Lab team, is gonna just do a quick little intro because some of you guys may have seen this on social. You may not know who the heck Design Lab is, so we will tell you. Then we'll do intros of the panelists, and we'll jump right into the conversation. Again, if you've just dialed in, I saw the number tick up. Feel free to intro yourself in the chat. Feel free to, say whatever you want in the chat. And if you have questions, put those in the questions tab. Everybody will be sent a link to the recording as soon as we're done here. And with that, so that we're making use of all of our time, Rudy, take it away. I'm going to stop talking for a second.
Yeah, absolutely. So glad to have you all here with us. Do continue saying hi in the chat and introducing yourselves as I kind of walk you through this very brief introduction about Design Lab. As Cam mentioned, I lead the admissions team, and I'm also the team training lead here at Design Lab. So if any of you are looking at advancing your design skills, you may be talking with me at some point. So it's nice to kind of make all of your acquaintances. And I did just want to give you a really brief overview about who Design Lab is. We were founded back in 2013, and we have been providing online courses related to pretty much every topic related to digital design that you can imagine ever since then. And since the very beginning, we really focused on providing high quality learning experiences that bring all the flexibility that comes with an online format of learning and connecting that with experiences where you actually learn directly from industry experts and people who are actively practicing design in their own careers, because we really believe that the learning experience is much more effective and engaging when you have that human interaction. Over the more than decade plus that we've been running our programs, we have had more than 25,000 people enroll into one of our many different courses and trainings and programs in order to launch and grow in their careers in UX and product design. And we have a vast network of hundreds of expert designers who have a wealth of experience working in the field, who also support people as they're continuing to level up their skills through our programs. And as Cam mentioned, we are very fortunate to have a handful of some of our amazing expert design mentors, instructors from our programs who are here to participate in this panel today. So that's just a little bit about what it is that we do here at Design Lab. For those of you who are here in attendance today, we did also want to kind of give you an extra little special something to walk away from this with. And so if you are interested in joining any of our upcoming courses, you can see a handful of the different ones that are launching very soon here on the screen. And we're also happy to share a $100 off discount. So if you are interested in joining any of them, you can use that panel 100 code. I'm going to drop a link to our website where you can see all of our courses. I'll post that in the chat. So feel free to peruse. And if you have any questions, we'll share our contact info at the end. For now, though, I'm going to pass the torch right back over. I would love to just get straight into our conversation, why everybody's here today. So take it away.
Cool. And a lot of AI programming, but also programming that's not just AI, which you'll see. Okay, we're going to do intros. And actually, after I kind of intro people, would love to hear where our panelists are. I don't even know myself off the top of my head, but wave when I intro you, just so folks know who we're talking about. Again, all of our panelists are from our kind of larger mentor and instructor community. So really excited to hear their perspective on some of these issues. Our first panelist is Courtney, who is a design director at Visa in Austin. She works with product design and research teams covering risk and authentication, loyalty, data, and issuing solutions. Before that, she had a short stint working on the podcast app and spent a lot of years in media branding. Hi, Courtney. Thanks for being here. You're in Austin, I guess. I do know where you are because it was in your bio. Next, we have Calvin Sims. He is a UX manager at Lululemon, where he leads design across the guest app experience. He focuses on building thoughtful, high-impact product experiences while growing and mentoring design teams. Hi, Calvin. Third up, we have Chris Jervis. He is a UX lead with over 25 years of experience navigating major shifts in design from early web and flash to mobile and now AI. Throughout his career, he has moved between generalist and specialist roles, building a deep understanding of how design evolves alongside technology. Today, he focuses on AI-first experiences for complex technical users. Having worked through multiple waves of change, Chris brings a grounded perspective on what endures in design and what actually matters as new tools reshape the field. And last but not least, we have Chrissy. Chrissy Welsh is VP Experience at KPN and has over 20 years of experience across fintech, health tech, e-commerce, digital product innovation, and AI. She is a design thinker, innovator, and creator. Her previous work includes being UX director at ING Analytics, and global UX directors at Deloitte and Philips. In addition to being a longtime mentor, she is the lead instructor and course creator for Design Lab's AI for UX design course. Welcome, everybody. Calvin, Chrissy, you're in Amsterdam or the Netherlands, right?
I am Goedenavond for those that speak Dutch. Yeah, I'm in the Netherlands for sure.
Calvin and Chris, where are you guys? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chrissy. What were you saying?
That's it. I was just going to say I'm a Scottish lady in the Netherlands.
There you go. Chris and Calvin, where are you guys? I didn't even ask you guys.
Yeah, I'm up in Canada, in Ottawa, which is one of Canada's tech hubs, home of places like Shopify. Yeah, that's where I am.
Cool. All right. Calvin, were you trying to unmute yourself? Go ahead.
Yes, it was not working. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, cool. All right, we're going to jump right into the conversation. Again, I think by virtue of the title, there's a bit of a thesis or perspective here, which is not that AI is not important. I think we as Design Lab have embraced AI and teaching AI tools and workflows and thinking about it wholeheartedly. But I think so much of the conversation has now become dominated by AI that perhaps as a larger design community, at times it's easy to lose sight of some of the things that have always mattered. And hopefully, while we will talk about AI in this conversation, we can also recenter and talk about some of those things that still matter that aren't AI. So let's just jump right into it. AI is obviously reshaping a lot about how designers work. But before talking about those changes specifically for the panelists, for yourself or for the people you're hiring, I think AI to some degree may be reshuffling the deck in terms of what's important. What are those non-AI skills that are actually becoming more important in your estimation? Perhaps there are areas that you feel are being overlooked now that everyone's kind of turned their focus over to AI. Feel free to jump in and we'll just keep this a free-flowing conversation.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. At least from my perspective, I mean, a lot of the foundational skills that traditionally we see coming in from a UX perspective are in some ways more important than ever, right? Because AI lets us move at speed. We're moving so quickly. We're also able to ship problems much more quickly, right? So for me, some of the skills that are important are still just having good taste, good storytelling, user research. All of those foundational fundamental things are more important now, I think, as we all are able to move at speed.
have some follow-ups or kind of digging deeper into some of those concepts, but some of the other folks first, curious to hear your perspective. Any, do you co-sign that? Are there things that maybe Chris didn't mention that you feel have become increasingly important? Or, for those of you guys who are hiring, what are the other things that you guys are looking at and looking for?
I think Chris touched on some really good points. One of the things that I find that some of the prototyping tools aren't great at is type hierarchy. When you have a lot of information and you, the user, are trying to navigate through an experience and it's just a wall of text, that can be really challenging to just get through the flow. I think that coaching is also a really important skill to have at any level. Right now, you mentioned earlier, we're kind of at the beginning of this huge shift in many industries, and being able to kind of have a player coach role is really important. I'm seeing actually a lot more junior level designers take on the role of kind of community management across teams, getting folks together to learn these new tools, to follow up and hold each other accountable. So I think that's a really important one as well.
I can jump in real quick and say, like, my last 6 hires that I've just made this year, starting in January, the one skill that we knew we wanted and needed in the team, because AI is pushing the visual design part of it really far, is behavioral design and understanding actually the human condition, about understanding the problem that we're trying to solve for, because that hasn't changed actually. And even from the 90s, you still need people to deeply understand the problem that you're actually trying to solve. And then you still need to understand the human condition about what it means to actually have it be solved and what it means to actually use something. And so those things are almost universally haven't changed for me, and they haven't changed for the team. And I'm bringing more of those skills into my team, because that's what makes a difference between something you build and generate that's just there, and something that's actually usable and people tune into, and it becomes something great. And so that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, totally aligned. I feel like what I go toward is like being in the room. So for a presentation, storytelling, framing, if someone's like, I don't see it that way, how do you frame the entire experience or the intent or the job to be done in a totally different way? And so I think really understanding your process, being really curious along the way, and then being able to storytell is going to be really, really top tier, because we will have a lot of content. It'll totally be saturated with what we can output, but being able to tell the story of how you got there with an analogy, a metaphor, or something that really resonates with your audience is going to be very impactful.
I want to dive a little bit into some of these things that people are picking up, right? I've heard the word storytelling a couple of times. Chrissy, you're talking about really understanding the problem. If somebody is early on in their career, how do you go about working on these skills? Some of these ones that you guys have talked about, and B, how are you, if you're hiring, how are you actually vetting these things? Is it just in the interview? Is there something that, how are you going through, and, when you're going through resumes or what have you, and filtering and vetting for some of these things? I'm curious kind of what the tells are for you guys who are hiring, or if you're just, evaluating, even if you're not the hiring manager.
I'll quickly start by just saying I go through portfolios. And I don't spend a lot of time on them, but I do spend maybe about 60 seconds to 2 minutes max. 2 minutes if I'm really intrigued and I'm trying to figure something out, but 60 seconds is kind of my benchmark, and it's not that long. But when I review a site, I'm looking to see, did you take the problem at face value, or did you break that one down and then put it back together again? Like, because you can see that in the first instance, in the first phase of the double diamond and in the discovery. Did someone just say, we need an app for an e-commerce app, and you just built one? Or did you say, what are you trying to do? in this e-commerce? Did you go back one step and ask a question before you say, why is this something you're looking for? I'm looking to see those things in the portfolio, and then I'm looking to see exploration. Are you able to actually go through and show me that you considered things that you didn't do? Did you consider a concept? Did you consider an idea? Because that's human. And that means that you are exploring and understanding that something is right and some things are wrong. Or did you just take the first idea you had and ran with it? And that's the difference between the people that I hire and the people that I don't. I'm looking to see that you understand what quality looks like and you understand the steps it takes, and you don't have a problem showing me the things that you dismissed along the way. And that has never steered me wrong in hiring great people.
I
Yeah,
love
I
that,
think that
Chrissy.
makes a lot of sense. Oh, sorry if I'm cutting you off, Calvin.
You're good.
Yeah,
You got this.
I definitely agree with that, right? I think certainly today it's a lot easier with some of these 5 coding tools and things to have a lot of polish, right, in what you're presenting. And maybe that's no longer the sign of, maybe a good quote designer or front end designer, right? So yeah, I mean, definitely having those signals so that like, do you actually understand the problem you're solving, right? Like that sort of what, why, and how. Because again, it's so easy just to have a very polished look and feel on something today, but understanding the deeper problem you're solving, the value you're delivering, who you're solving those problems for, continue to be like really important. And that's, I think, what you need to look for a little bit more.
Calvin, you were saying? Were you saying something before Chris jumped in?
I think his mute unmute is being a little finicky.
Oh.
I see him like trying to click.
Okay, you may be muted, Calvin. We'll if you want to, you can jump out and jump back in if that might help. To unmute yourself. No, we can't hear you. We'll move on, and Rudy, maybe you can message him and we can see if we can get him live. Okay, well, moving on, or kind of going back a little bit to something that you, Chris, and you, Courtney, said. Chris, you used the word taste, which I think is something that is being thrown around a lot, right? Not just by designers, but it's the thing that's standing against AI. But I think, what do we talk about when we talk about taste? What does that mean? I think there's different interpretations of what that meant. And the reason I hearkened to something you said, Courtney, is you were kind of talking about typography, and essentially, are we talking about taste, or is there something else? Courtney, curious. You said, hey, some of these AI UI tools, there's issues with them. Is that essentially what you're getting at, or is it something else?
I think it's both, and it also depends on how the tools are consuming a design system, if at all. So there's so many variables in that. But I think that it's important for all designers to understand the mechanics of what's going in so that they can better judge or manipulate what's coming out.
Chris, did you have anything to add on that point?
Yeah, I mean, certainly agree, right? Like having a ready-made design system that you're pulling from, the more context you can sort of give these tools, the better your outputs are going to be. But yeah, I guess having that layer of judgment, it's a hard thing to teach, right? Because honestly, with these tools, if you just prompt something like, give me a landing page for, I don't know, a finance app, right? It's going to do a really, really good job of spitting out a really, really generic landing page. It's going to look good. It's going to have amazing polish on it. But once you start to sort of scratch the surface a little bit, you're going to find problems, right? It's something that maybe comes out a little bit more when if you ask one of these tools to give you something generic, which will do really good on, as soon as you start to give it a little more context or maybe a very specific problem that you're trying to solve, you're going to get a much worse output, right? That you're going to really have to know what you're doing to direct it back to something you like. So relying on these tools is great, and they're going to get better, but having your own foundational knowledge, which again, you have to spend time doing that, right? It's still important, and it's still valid.
This is something that has come up in the last couple of weeks with product partners. The definition of good enough. It depends on what stage of the product life cycle you're in. If you're in MVP, your product owners have the ultimate say at the end of the day. And if they say this is good enough, designers are getting really frustrated. They're like, it's not using the right components. This pattern is broken. It's not consistent with another product that the same, consumer is using. And that sometimes doesn't matter. What the MVP, some stages are to get funding, to get engineer headcount, to get more design and research headcount. So as a designer, you need to understand and be flexible in terms of what you're willing to ship as a deliverable.
Chrissy, I saw you nodding along. Did you have something to add on that one?
I have this conversation so often. It's like every week I have this conversation inside my own company, and it goes like this. They say, if you can generate the designs and the tools and what you're looking to have or what we're looking to create, well, why can't we just get the time to market shorter? And the answer is it cannot be, because you're releasing to a production level environment. You're releasing to people en masse. I have somewhere in the region of about 2 million users of the digital products that we have, right? And in the whole of the Netherlands, KPN, they have like millions of users on the KPN. We can't just vibe code our way into this or out of it, for that matter. Like, we have to make sure that what we create is incredibly stable and incredibly good, and that requires craftsmanship. And when you work on products that have this level of craftsmanship that has to be there, of course I use AI tools. I love them. They get us generating things really fast, and ideas and the creativity. But I pull all of that back in. This is about your workflow. You've got to have AI in your workflow. You've got to pull it back into your production environment and make sure that it's right. The accessibility's got to be there. Number one thing that breaks actually in generation is accessibility. Color contrast is something that it just isn't picked up on. Courtney mentioned the text hierarchy. That's also something that goes wrong sometimes. The size of the text is also often not right. And so these kind of things, that's what makes things production and what makes it right for users. And so when I talk about behavioral design and when I talk about things being right, I have a thing with my team. I say, do the right thing and do the thing right. And we always got to do that. And I will summarize my very chaotic mentionings by just saying that it's right for different parts of the process in the double diamond. It is not right for production yet. And I don't think it ever will be, because you're talking about a stability of code that has to live there, and connections to databases that have to be incredibly secure. We're a telco company. We cannot afford to build in security breaks and things like that in our designs. So I would say that that's why we still have a lot of need for the craft of what we do. Okay, I'll be quiet, but you get the idea.
Thanks, Chrissy. One thing that hasn't been brought up, and maybe this is just my own soapbox or my own bias of working with designers in various capacities over time, that wasn't mentioned, is kind of business acumen, understanding the business, and it's probably always been important, but does the fact that you're maybe able to accelerate certain parts of the process via AI kind of make that even more important? And then especially, kind of communicating to stakeholders and telling them why, certain parts may not speed up, et cetera, and being able to speak that language. Curious, I don't know, if the folks on the panel have, if this is something you vet for, or if this is something that you feel is kind of increasing in value or necessity for designers to have as they move forward in this world where there's AI, there are these tools where you can create mockups fast, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, I'll comment, I guess, or at least what I think maybe you're asking on.
Or disagree.
Yeah, like, I guess where you're introducing AI into like your workflows and your systems, what that's going to do is it's either going to expose all the silos you have or all the bottlenecks you have, again, like at scale, much more rapidly. So I think that really means that you need to have like just more open communication, right? Because and we're also seeing a lot of roles like starting to blend, right? Because a PM can go into a room and prototype something out in an afternoon and maybe have that in front of a stakeholder at the same time. And maybe it's never come across the designer's desk and the conversation's already happened and some decisions have been made. Um, so, so yeah, I mean, I think being eyes wide open on the fact that like that's happening, that is happening across industry, is really important to know. But I guess when you're trying to accelerate your workflows too, coming into a new organization, I think some things haven't really changed. Like you still have to understand who is your customer, right? Like what are you selling? What value are you offering them? And how are you doing that, like through your products or your product offerings, right? And we're still going to have that push and pull between trying to give the best UX for the user, balancing the business needs, right? Or sometimes we're certainly reducing scope and clawing back on the great user experience versus what can we ship with our budget, right? And how do we get this out quickly? If you can get everything out quickly because you have AI, what does that mean? Where do you put those checks and balances in place? And I don't have that answer. I think we're all figuring this out as we go along a little bit.
Yeah, I think I can actually get the mute button working.
It's working. I hear you, Calvin.
Okay, wonderful. So business acumen, I think when I'm considering that, it's like, how well do you understand the business, the product, the strategy, and the impacts your decisions for the experience have on not just the user, but also on the business as well? And I think that is going to be much harder to synthesize with AI, because most companies are going to say there are certain bits of information we do not want to add into the system to have like readily available. And so you having that understanding and being able to go to different business partners, different areas of the business, no matter what experience you're working on, if it's a small segment of like a PDP experience in an e-commerce app, how does what you build impact other areas of the business, and what are their goals and what are their expectations? What are they driving toward? And having an understanding of that is a tool set that helps you build better experiences, but also helps you forge stronger partnerships across aisles and different parts of the organization. So I think it is very, very important to understand the business and the goals of the business and what are we trying to achieve, because there's always going to be that tension between what your user wants and what the business wants to give them.
Changing gears here a little bit, there's a decent number of questions, so maybe we'll carve off a little extra time for that. Curious, if your guys' advice, and maybe I'll kind of combine a couple of the questions I had into one, which is, especially, we have a number of folks who are on this call who are probably earlier on in their career, but this advice probably also holds for folks who have been designers for a while. Curious how you would recommend people kind of approaching this new environment, both in terms of AI, right? Like, are there certain things that you just expect from hires or that you really want to see fluency in? But also, those core skills and for those core skills, how might you recommend people go about building those in a way that is going to make them stand out in the market? Other than taking design lab classes, which I'm sure is always the first the first choice. But I guess generally, thinking about arming yourself for this new environment, what would be, I guess, the advice that you would give folks, especially those folks who are earlier on in their career?
From my point of view, I would say dive in, like just get hands-on with these tools because they're not going away, right? A genie's sort of out of the bottle with this stuff. And, the expectations are going to change in ways that probably nobody here can really predict right now on what it means and how AI is going to continue to affect our workflows. And as its capability continues to get better and better and better, I sort of mentioned how like the lines between roles are blurring a little bit, right? If I can design something and have it coded, and again, like just have something functional at my computer in 2 hours or less, right? That's great. But I think and for new hires, like I would want to see somebody actually using those tools, but then going through the steps of actually testing those things, like getting feedback, like not necessarily shipping product, but in a way, shipping product, right? Because there's kind of, I don't want to say there's no excuse. If you have access to these tools, you can just create at speed. So I would say get your hands dirty and actually get like feedback from people while you're at it.
I was typing in the chat, but I wanted to answer a quick question that Andrea put in there. Guardrails around prototyping tools without design expertise. I think that a good skill is negotiating and socializing what artifacts are considered deliverables and what are considered conversational tools or tools to get a shared understanding of requirements. What are the requirements? What is considered good enough or done in this phase? And then I forgot what else I was going to say next. Where the feature phases will go and what parameters you're working in. I think that's really important. More like let them, they have the tools. Every product person, every engineer, they can go and start working in these prototyping tools on their own and produce things. Encourage them to learn that because they don't have the reps that you do. They don't have the expertise. They don't have the taste. Their job is to, run these teams to get to delivery on the product, right? They're not designers. So they're going to tire themselves out eventually. Coach them, let them co-prototype with the design teams, have them buddy up. I think it's a really good trust building and learning opportunity as opposed to kind of putting them in a corner and saying, you can't do these things, invite them into those conversations and ask, what kinds of variables are they also working against?
Cool.
I think bring up.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was going to say, Courtney brings up some really beautiful points, actually, which I love. And she says, you cannot put, and I love Chris said that you cannot put the genie back in the bottle. People are going to use these tools. People who are not designers are going to use these tools. People who are not designers are going to come to you in your design team and say, hey, look, they want a pat on the back. They want to be told that they're great. They're going to show you things and they're going to say, look what I built. I built something cool. Can we do this? The trick with designers, and that's our skill. Our core skill is empathy, and the core skill is asking why. You've got to have a look at it and you go, what is it they were trying to do? And then you've got to also come back to that and go, they were trying to show you an idea they had in their head that they needed to get out. There was something behind this, and just go, you can ask them questions. That's what we're good at. Everyone says designers ask questions a lot. We can do that and go, what is it we're trying to do? Was it the feature that you're trying to get built? What are we doing here with this design? Was it the layout that you're thinking about redesigning? You can use these as inspiration also for your own team. You don't have to say you don't get to use these tools, but instead of someone sketching on the back of a napkin before, or even worse, now they have these tools. Before, I used to get the PowerPoints of people with blocks. They used to do the blocks in the PowerPoint, and you just said, this is what I want. If you remember that, give me a thumbs up in the emojis, because that's what I used to deal with. Sometimes it was a PDF, sometimes it was a PowerPoint, and now they're doing something different. They've got some tools in a different language to use, so they're coming to you and they're saying, look what I'm thinking about. That doesn't mean they can do it. The same as the person with the squares in the PowerPoint doesn't mean they can build it, but they're trying to have a conversation with you. And it's important to then go, what is it about what they're trying to do that is interesting, and what is it that I can take from this, and what makes this product better? And that is our skill, because we have the empathy and the questions to get to the bottom of what the hell is going on, the problem behind the problem.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I heard you say, like, just asking the question too, like, why? Why? And that's always a great question.
Why we here having this conversation with off Queen. Let's get to the bottom of it.
Definitely. And I think too, like another role of the designer is to de-risk things like that. So yeah, I mean, asking why is a good question. And I think in the more the pre-AI way of working, right? We were de-risking a lot because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money, it takes a lot of investment, it takes a lot of meetings, it takes a lot of headcount to ship a feature, to ship a product. And again, like, you're just seeing that ship time just compress like rapidly and in measures that are just really mind-boggling.
This is a great
So
conversation.
to de-risk, sorry, just to close that thought, but what does it mean to de-risk when you're shipping so quickly, when things can happen so quickly?
I was just going to say, I think this is a great conversation. I do want to bring it a little back to the question and the theme. I think certainly operating in this kind of environment where everybody has access to AI tools, there's definitely overlap with how designers should be preparing themselves. But I guess back to the question that I asked, curious, Chris, you gave your thoughts. If any of the other panels have a perspective on just kind of, again, people, the market is what the market is right now. How should people be preparing themselves, be that by diving into AI tools, as you suggested, Chris, or otherwise, and how can they kind of show and prove that they've developed those skills? I know you talked about portfolios earlier, Chrissy, but curious of any additional perspectives on that.
I love the recommendation to dive into the tools. I also think Chrissy blending in the why, because I think the tools themselves can do a lot of the heavy lifting, but they don't always give you the rationale. Why was this decision made? And I think that's where we come in really strong and really powerfully, and spending time really considering those things. It's back to the core of understanding strategic thinking, understanding visual flow, visual design, the psychology behind how visuals work in a UI. Really understanding those core components allows you to have a better level of discernment as you move forward in whatever you're creating. So I think of it very similarly to my background in fine art photography. Spent a lot of time with analog photography, film cameras, like actually getting under the 4x5 and spending a lot of time really discerning, is this the right shot? Trying to have a lot of restraint because you can't swap out and throw in another negative really quickly. Doing that and then moving into digital photography, the approach is very different. If you start with digital and you can just snap, you can have 1,000 photos in an hour. I come from a different space where I spent so much time trying to learn those fundamentals and really understanding the tool itself, that now I know how and when and where to apply each of those different components or different features or different things that I've learned along the way. And I think the same thing with AI. It's not going away, but it is now a tool that we need to thoroughly understand when, where, why to apply. And so you need to have that foundation so that when you start leveraging the tool, you know when to put it in place.
I'm going to jump in real quick and say I love that analogy, Calvin, because I was sitting here and it reminds me of everyone thought that now that digital photography here is going to be the death of photographers as a job. So everyone with their digital cameras can shoot, reshoot, and it's the death of photography as a discipline even. And do you know something? There's a reason that Uncle Bob with his digital camera does not take your wedding photos. And the reason is because he can't, because he's not good enough, because that moment matters, and it matters that it's right, And that is why you go to a professional and a craftsman to take your photos. There's a reason that people still have photo shoots, because the moment matters, the capture matters. And this is what we're uncovering with design. We're in that first era where everyone has their digital camera and thinks, I can take all my shots, I don't need anything anymore. But you know what? The craft still matters, and there's a reason that people will still use designers, because you don't want Bob as your PM doing all your design work for you, because the moment matters, and that will be. Yeah, I'm going to just stop here.
Totally, Chrissy. Totally aligned, as you would imagine. I think one thing that AI tools have over digital photography is I needed to understand when to dial up shutter speed, when to change the ISO, when to switch my aperture for the thing that I see. With AI tools, you can ask the tool to tell you why. So you can leverage the tool in a way to learn along the way. Like, why did you even give me this as a suggestion? And try to glean something from it rather than just taking what you get. I think in digital photography, it's a lot easier to just take the photo that you have and say, this is the one, must be the one. It's on auto, the camera knows better than I do. But I think getting into the weeds with the tool that you're using and really trying to pull apart, why did you give me this suggestion? Why did you suggest this? Why did you offer this as the UI for this component? Like, help me break this down. And maybe you get something helpful, maybe you don't get what you need. But I think breaking apart the total into the sum of its parts and trying to understand the bits and pieces will inevitably make you way more valuable and elevate your skill set, no matter what the tool is.
Great. This is a great conversation. We're going to kind of keep it going with the questions. I see a bunch in there, and we want to handle those. And I think a lot of those will overlap some of the things we're already talking about. Real quick before we get to that, a word from our sponsor, who is Design Lab. Rudy, you want to just pull that up one more time, and then we're going to get to all these questions and continue this conversation.
Yes, absolutely. I was sitting here going, am I the sponsor? Yeah, absolutely. Because I'm sure that we're going to want to run through everyone's questions right up until the top of the hour. So before we kind of transition over to those to take us home, just a quick reminder, we do have a special discount for all of you, just to say thank you for participating in our conversation today. You can use the discount code PANEL100 in order to get $100 off any of our courses for working designers. You can see some of our upcoming start dates there on the screen. Again, I'm just going to drop the website where you can find all of the course information into the chat, and then the $100 discount code that you'll need to use is right there as well. And if you have any questions before signing up, our team is always happy to help answer. So myself and then my other admissions team members, Bobby and Emily Ann, we'd be happy to set up a time to chat. So please feel free to schedule a call with our team. You can find our call booking links right there on our website. You can also shoot us an email. I'm going to drop our email there in the chat for you as well. It's advanced.admissions@designlab.com. So any and all questions, shoot them over that way, and we will get back to you. But let's use the rest of our time here together today to hear more from our panelists.
And the only other thing I'll say, I think you had the June 12th date for that AI for UX design course. If you really like Chrissy and you want to see more of her every week, you can sign up for that course. I think a cohort is starting this Friday, actually. There's one starting even sooner.
There is. I didn't put the Friday date just because it's so soon and we only have literally a handful of seats left. But if you are super, super eager, you could go ahead and get started this Friday. And if you need help with getting set up in time for the Friday start date, you've got the admissions team contact details.
And Damn Fine Design just said that they liked our AI for visual design course. Appreciate the shout out. Appreciate your screen name, I guess, whatever you call it. Okay, let's dive into the questions. I'm going to just start at the bottom. If you guys want to upvote them, we'll try to get through as many as we can, but I'm going to start at the bottom until people have a time to upvote them. It looks like Chrissy was already in there answering questions. As designers, should we use AI as our time-saving tool and keep feeding it with our human creativity, or resort to traditional ways with no AI? And Chrissy said, I see it with my team as a starting point. It gets the creativity started and helps us build. There's no escaping production environments. If you need to release to the public, it needs to be right. If anyone have any other answer to that question? I mean, I think the reality is, as part of your workflow, like the expectation is most people are using AI tools in some capacity, right? It's just a question of understanding when to use it and when not to.
Yeah, when to use it and why to use it, right? If you're rapidly prototyping something and it's more or less, at least visually, seems to be fully functional, what are you doing with that? Right? Are you testing it with your users? Are you learning anything from it before you maybe hand that over to your development team to actually be shipped, right? So yeah, like why are you using the tool?
Katie asked about getting through AI sorting, ostensibly for jobs. Chrissy mentioned to add keywords. I'd also say, just from speaking to a lot of folks who are in the market, it's not an either or. I'm not going to tell you not to apply, cold apply to jobs. It's definitely a path. But the folks who are most successful do the work with networking, right? And like your hit rate, is going to be so much higher, so much higher. And it's not comfortable for everybody, and people are introverts, and I'm one, but you got to do what you got to do. Charmaine asked, are real life case studies critical for a portfolio? As I'm starting to learn UX design, I have concept ideas, but no real life clients work to show for it. Chrissy said, not critical. I don't mind fake cases as long as they are tested and involve some kind of human check. Every hire is a bet. The CV is there to reduce the risk on your bet to your hiring manager. Curious, any other? Chrissy, you're just doing all the work for us. So we're just banging through these questions. If anyone has anything else to say.
I keep my
Chrissy is ahead.
I'm not going to interrupt anybody. I have this
Yeah.
habit of like cutting in people, and I thought, keep your hands busy and your mouth closed, and then it makes for interesting.
Here's an open one that I think folks might have some different perspectives on. Claudia asked, our teams are being asked to utilize AI, right? Like we hear this time and time again, like the higher ups are like, more AI, do it. And she asked, in what ways do AI tools add value to your workflow? Chrissy listed a whole host of ways: research, competitive analysis, user reviews, scrapes, interview transcripts, et cetera, et cetera. Curious, kind of the other folks on the panel, like, how are you what are your top couple ways that you're actually using it day to day?
I mean, I might flip that and think about the ways, you shouldn't use it. When is enough, right? Because you can keep prompting and it will just keep giving you stuff. It's like a slot machine. Give me another idea. Give me another idea, right? But I'm certainly using it as sometimes a thought partner and sometimes as an assistant, right? And it really depends on the use case. But yeah, I mean, kind of knowing when enough is enough is important, because it's easy to just be stuck prompting, and what are you doing with all of that material that's getting produced? I think you need to have some intent and definitely some agency around when is enough?
I've been using it for strategy work and planning most of the time. Working at Visa, it is a giant company. There are so many people moving around at all times. And so it's really helpful for, admin things like meeting prep, getting recordings of things that I wasn't able to make it to, and also getting team feedback. It's really helpful for that too. When there's no more time on the calendar, people are getting meeting fatigue, and they're tasked with learning all of this new stuff. Just quick touch points can be really helpful there.
RJ asked, what advice do you have for responding to non-designers who came up with something? I think kind of Chrissy touched on this, asking the why, getting to, what was the root cause of that. If anyone has anything else to add, feel free, but I'll just keep going because we have a lot of questions. How can designers go about reverse interviewing hiring managers to ensure there's an environment allowing us to practice good design processes? So many times you jump into a role only to find pressures to skip the proper steps. So how would you vet an opportunity, I guess, is the, and maybe, through the lens, particularly the environment might be a little extra fraught right now, right? Like with pressures around AI. What would be the questions you'd ask if you're taking another role? Anybody in the panel?
Oh, this is a really good one. Reverse engineering is tough, but I think really thinking about what matters to you the most. What are the things that give you the most tension and anxiety, and then kind of frame your questions around that. But if it's generally the process, how quickly are you moving through a process? How quickly do you go from discovery into delivery? Is that a couple days, or is your expectation a little bit more time? Like, what does that look like? Because I think the length of the process and what are all the steps they're taking to get there gives you a more clear idea. How often does that happen? Is it all the time? Do we have to skip some things sometimes to move even quicker? I think those are the sorts of questions that I would think to ask. Yeah, off the top of my head.
I'm just gonna we'll just move on from there. Thank you for that answer, Calvin. Kayla asked, any advice on communicating to hiring teams? Yes, I know how to incorporate LLMs, but that is secondary to my education training experience without looking like someone who is refusing to adapt. I want to communicate that I maintain a level of doubt and a level of oversight when building products. So maybe, yeah, to ask in another way, how do you walk the line of adapting and using these new tools, but not kind of communicating that you're not only using those things, that you have a education, you have a background, you have experience for a reason, and that those are valuable. How do you communicate and navigate that with other folks?
I can quickly say that there's a lot to be said for how you say things, which is the first thing to do it, because you don't have to say yes, but you can do the whole improv yes and, right? You can say, of course, we incorporate LLMs. Yes, of course. And we make sure that they have a right place, because, you know, making sure that we have the education training experience, making sure that we do the right thing, that's important to us, you know. And it's how you come in sometimes with you can come in with enthusiasm and skepticism at the same time. You don't, you know, two things can be true, and you can do that. It doesn't have to be whoa, whoa, whoa with the horses. It can be, of course, of course, of course. And we also think about these things because they're important. And I think that's the way I would do it. And I find it works really well for me with teams. But you've got to find your own personal style in your communication, what works for you. I'm happy with a yes and methods of doing it and coming in there like that.
Totally. Same. I think I would throw it back probably out of curiosity and go, totally understand where you're coming from, and I understand how to leverage an LLM. I'm really curious where that fits into your process today. Like, what is that? How does that work? Because I think of it like a tool. It's kind of like a calculator. I know how to do the work by hand, but this can speed my workflow up as a tool. But when do you use it? And which formulas, which part of the equation am I leveraging this calculator? And I'd love to know.
What's
Right.
important in this conversation, because getting down
Totally.
to, sorry, I interrupted you, Calvin.
No, you're good. You're good.
This is why I time. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I think it was just framing it as yes and following Chrissy's lead, but then also a little bit of curiosity, because understanding where they leverage it can give you a better understanding of where you can insert your education, training, experience, and background.
LW asked, how do you deal with homogenization of thought that comes from using AI tools with a shared data set, also navigating copyright issues? And curious, you know, like the kind of question assumes that using AI tools will lead to a homogenization of thought. Not sure if the panelists fully agree or kind of what the perspective is on that.
That's an interesting one, because it's so tempting just to outsource your thinking to the AI, right? Because it's going to generate a really polished response in some way, whether that's a visual response or just, you know, a conversational response. And you're going to cherry pick the things you like about that, and you're going to send that to your colleague or your manager, and they might use AI to synthesize what you sent them, right? And then you sort of get in this loop of like, does anybody actually have their eye on what's happening, right? Like, where's the oversight of how we're using these tools? It's interesting because you've got this sort of siloed information set, right? You've got like this AI overseer of a lot of things. Yeah, I don't know that answers really on homogenizing information, but I think there's a real danger there.
I'm going to quickly say,
I think,
sorry,
oh,
you go.
Go ahead,
I was
Courtney.
just gonna say, I'm not super concerned about it creating, a super homogenous environment because designers are inherently very creative. We're going to push against those points of view and sort of like get curious into the whys. I think, this was an answer for a lot of other questions too, but I think it's a conversation starter. I also consider, sources of truth as something to consider when different ideas are being discussed or different schools of thought are developing from the work that you're doing. That single source of truth, it can be very challenging to identify, but it will force people to actually use their human brains and think. Chrissy, go ahead.
I was actually going to say something similar to what you said, which is I found actually, and I have created AI prompt libraries to try to force some kind of homogenization, because if everyone generates their UX reports based on the data sets that they have or the things that they've got with their metrics for their own designs or their own journey flows, what's happening is I have 10 different report styles actually to look at, and that's really taxing on my brain to read. So I force them into format guidelines inside the prompting so that everyone's report is the same way, because I need to kind of wrangle my designers a little like stray cats into a way of working that's kind of means that we can assimilate the information much better. And so I was going to say exactly what you were saying, which is we're very creative people. We don't have to worry too much about that, but getting everyone to kind of at least speed up in the same ways actually the struggle I'm finding a little bit.
We just had a couple minutes left. Anne asked a question about pivoting from a tech writing to UX writing. I think Chrissy answered that in the chat. Ellen asked, love to hear some specific recommendations for tools, especially for beginners. And as always, Chrissy already responded, but curious for the other folks on the panel, your kind of go to, one or two tools that you find yourself using the most these days. And are there any that are, maybe are under the radar that you're, maybe other people aren't talking about that you find really important to your work?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about like new tools, there are a whole host of prototyping tools that you can access out there. I moved into a management role, so I haven't been hands-on with like Pixels and Figma for like probably a year or two, even though I still know my way around it really, really well. Personally, I've been using Claude Code quite a bit in my workflow, and I've barely looked back. I don't want to promote Claude Code. I think a great place to start is with a lot of foundational courses like Design Lab offers.
Yeah, that really quickly, I think the world is your oyster is kind of my answer. Like knowing how much is out there at your fingertips, I think get curious, jump into tools, even watch an intro video on YouTube or something of the tool itself and understand how it's functioning and see in all of these different areas and different avenues, what tool is best for what can you incorporate into your workflow, what's going to work best for you so that you can build your own system for your workflow. So like, yes, there are recommendations, but I think it depends on how you work. It depends on what organization you're at and what is sanctioned as a tool. Like there's so many different factors that I say, go broad and then you narrow down into what will work best for you.
Cool. And on that note, the clock just struck the top of the hour, and we want to be mindful of our panelists' time. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Hopefully the people who joined us found this conversation valuable. You will be sent a link of the recording right after we close here. If you want to connect with folks on LinkedIn, feel free to connect with me. Feel free, you can connect with the panelists and they may or may not accept you, but feel free to try, I guess. If we cannot make the upcoming courses, they're one upcoming. Yeah, and go ahead and you can go to our site and we have a bunch of upcoming dates for our courses, or contact Rudy or our admissions team, and we'll be happy to chat with you about upcoming courses. But thanks again for joining in. If look forward to seeing you guys either at one of our events in the future, in one of our courses, save $100 with code event100 and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Thanks everyone for joining. And thanks especially to our panelists, Chrissy, Calvin, Chris, Courtney,
Later.
all C's, and Cam. Rudy, get out of here. All right.
I was
See
a
you
late
guys.
addition.
Yeah.
One of these does not belong.
Thanks everybody.
everyone.
Thank you.